Hello,
Serious.
Oh,
All right. Harry, you recording?
shit.
we are
This is
live.
yeah, it's okay. It's a pro game. We're good.
Request is sent. Host has allowed to record.
Brilliant. All right, welcome back to Amy and this is our third live book club, which is really, really exciting. Because
Woo!
we're live and on the pod we'll have the opening, but we don't on the live show. I'm just going to acknowledge that we're meeting on Ghana land today, and I'm particularly thrilled to be in Tantanya down by Karawura and the River Torrens, and it's a beautiful place to live and work and write. And I am thrilled to welcome my co-host. So I'm Amy Matthews, and I am here today with Millie Heffernan,
Hello.
Harry Stewart,
Hi.
Abby Guy,
Hey.
Peyton Hogan,
Hello.
and Justina Ashman.
Hi.
And we're here today because it's Smut Month, which
Highly
has been
anticipated.
highly anticipated. It's been getting mixed reactions from people I know. Like some people are like super excited. Other people like do this weird nose wrinkle at word smut, which I think
I wonder
is really
why. That's
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, weird. Anyway, we've been having Smut Month. We've been having a ball of a time. Last week, we interviewed Christina Lauren, who are the authors of our book of the month. So we picked this one, Beautiful Bastard, because, well, A, we met Christina and Lauren last year, and we knew that their work would open up lots of conversation around this topic, and also that they would be amazing to talk to about this topic. But we're also picking this book because it's just been re-released. We don't have the re-release cover in Australia. The re-release cover you can find has got a bright color like yellow and red on it. And they've gone back to it after, how many years is it? What year did it come out?
12 years, I think.
12 years?
Oh.
Where is it? 2013. Yep. So 12 years
I
ago, they
remember
released
stocking
this.
all the books at the bookshop. They were
Oh,
always all on the shelf. Yeah.
yeah, they've been super popular. Like for the last 10 years, I think every year I have someone in a class tell me that they love these books. Anyway, so they've gone back because it is a really raunchy book, and they've re-released it with some tweaks to it. So we thought it'd be a good chance to go and revisit the original and have a chat about smut and basically spicy sexual content. So before we do that, though, we had a cocktail of the month and a mocktail of the month and a snack of the month. So everyone who made the cocktail, hold it up. I think there's only two of us, but it was Sex on the Beach. So it's peach schnapps, vodka, cranberry juice, and orange juice. And the Cuddles on the Beach was our mocktail. Did anyone make that? They were copped out.
No.
Didn't have the stuff.
No, it was a little bit of, I had to go buy peach schnapps, which was a weird thing to buy.
I made up a cocktail. It's just orange juice, lemonade, and rum. It's really nice.
That sounds
Oh.
nice.
Yeah.
That does sound like
Enough.
something you would have on the beach.
I purchased peach schnapps for this, and then when I poured the peach schnapps this afternoon, I realized it tastes and smells exactly like peach
Cough medicine.
soju.
Cough medicine.
Oh.
Peach
So I
soju.
Oh, okay. I was going cough medicine, but okay.
I wonder what they
Alright
thought
then.
with you guys buying peach snaps. They would have thought, like,
They do
what
stop
underage person are you giving this to?
just to sound like really snotty. When we used to go skiing a lot, it's really good to have a shot of schnapps at the end of the day. It warms you up. So you can use that all winter, Abby.
Well,
time
we
you're
always
cold.
have butterscotch schnapps.
Oh, there you go.
Because we like cowboy cocksuckers. So
Which you will be having again when we do Cowboy Month.
yes, that's a
Oh, that's a
really-
sneaky hint.
What
I
is
also
everyone else
have
drinking?
Oh, I
Sorry.
have a gin and tonic, which looks like I've made it up here, but is actually from a
Nice.
can.
Very nice.
Oh.
Very nice.
You put the garnish in it so it looks
I
gourmet.
did.
Yeah.
Harry,
That's cool
Millie, what
cup,
have you
Millie.
got? Yeah, what have you
Pepsi.
got?
Pepsi Max.
in- but that's a
Nice.
very Sex on the Beach cup, I have to say. Pineapple?
Yes.
Nice. Harry, Harry's
Harry's
gone.
gone. I was
What?
looking at him saying he's frozen, but at
He's
least he froze in a
froze.
really nice, he looked good.
I'm going to guess what he's drinking.
What a way to
I'm-
quit the podcast.
Yeah, I know. Just stormed out. Couldn't handle your pineapple Pepsi. I think he's probably drinking a Sauv Blanc, would be my guess.
I would
I would
assume that there is
assume, yeah.
wine next to Harry, yes.
Is there wine
Mhm,
next to
mhm.
Harry? We'll find out.
Harry, do you have
Not
wine?
me drinking out live during a book club.
I know. We thought you might have thrown a fit at the Pepsi and just stormed out.
thrown a Pepsi.
Oh, is that a
Maybe.
wine I saw?
That's a
Was that
wine.
wine? White wine?
I just lost complete internet connectivity.
Oh, that may happen again.
And I was like, no, I've connected to me now, so I'll be fine.
I saw a recipe. Sorry, this is so not on the book club, but it's, worth telling you. I saw a recipe I almost sent to you for tonight, which is frozen jalapeno Sauv Blanc. So
Oh,
you
that would have
freeze
been
all the
perfect.
jalapenos.
Easy.
It would have been a spicy wine.
Would have been a
Wow.
spicy wine, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope somebody screen grabs my face, by the way, just as I drop out, because it would have been like, as I
I
watched
was
Amy,
literally just
as
saying
I
that
watched
you looked
everyone
good. It froze on a
breathe.
nice, snap.
All right, back to book club. So we're doing Beautiful Bastard, and I'm going to ask Abby to read the blurb for
Before we
us.
blurb, I'm so sorry. Right as we're trying to get on topic, the spicy wine reminded me we need to see Peyton's taste test of the
Oh
cookie.
my goodness,
Oh.
the snack.
Yeah.
How did I forget the snack? So the
These?
snack this month is these amazing cookies that Millie made us that you can see on Instagram.
Not my
and
recipe, but a good recipe.
yeah, it's like chili choc chip cookies
Yep, basically.
and
Yep.
amazing. And,
Yeah.
and Abby and Justina and Peyton have been cooking up a storm. But Peyton, what did you do when you cooked yours?
I didn't have a half a tablespoon. So you need half a tablespoon of cayenne pepper.
Couldn't you get a real
Um,
tablespoon?
I don't know how to do these things. I don't know. I thought, well, surely 2 teaspoons is like a half a tablespoon.
That is correct, I'm pretty sure. At least my tablespoons that have the mil measurements on it. A tablespoon is 20 mil. A teaspoon is 5 mil. So 2
Oh.
teaspoons should be half a
So
tablespoon.
you might be a genius there. So it might
It
be
might
fine.
be perfect.
Wow.
I did add a little bit extra though, because
Yeah, just in case.
but then I tasted the dough and it was really spicy. But I mean, obviously it
It cooks
expands.
out. It cooks out a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see. Everyone's going back.
Oh,
Oh,
How'd you go?
It's not too bad.
Okay.
good.
Oh.
Let's see you in about 5
Building over
minutes.
time, though.
It will.
watching the flush come up from my...
Yeah, I'm gonna go bright red.
Yeah.
It's getting spicier the more time passes.
Amazing.
If I just keep eating,
Yeah.
it won't catch up with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Nothing can go wrong here.
Mine has a bit of a kick to it as well. I wonder how much I put in.
I
also put-
Gonna
I
say,
teaspoons.
the base recipe is not super spicy.
I put a little bit extra in, but not that much extra. And I put in
That seems to be what everyone's doing. It doesn't seem like
And
enough.
I put in the chili dark chocolate as the choc chips.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
that's
so
a
I
good
don't
idea.
know- So I don't know how much of the chilies. I mean, I've had that chocolate before. It's not spicy. It's just,
I used gochugaru instead, which is a Korean chili powder.
Whoa.
Um,
Hopefully not a ton.
no, I used the equivalent. You're not actually supposed to substitute it. It's a whole thing because they're cayenne
Yes.
pepper. It's not the same. But cayenne pepper has more of a kick, whereas gochugaru just has like a larger flavor profile. And it's really nice.
oh my gosh, we should try. Now I need to cook them again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snack variation.
All right.
But
So
back on topic.
if you have not cooked cookies, you can go onto our Instagram, and Millie has popped up the recipe for the cocktail, the mocktail, and the cookies. So you will be able to cook your own. They really were seriously the best cookies I've ever had. They were
Really
amazing.
good choc chip cookies,
Mhm.
just as a base.
So now I'm going to hand over to Abby. We'll finally get back to the book. If you can read us the blurb.
Okay, I'm going to disclaimer beforehand that I'm now reading aloud from a thing, and that's always nerve-wracking. It's like being in high school again. You kind of stand there and hope that you're not called on.
And
I
then
also
Jake did
have
this, and
the edition I thrifted, and so it's like the first time in print. So I also don't know how much the blurb has changed since.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, 2013.
Yeah, but here we go. Whip smart, hardworking, and on her way to an MBA, Chloe Mills has only one problem: her boss, Bennett Ryan. He's exacting, blunt, inconsiderate, and completely irresistible, a beautiful bastard. Bennett has returned to Chicago from France to take a vital role in his family's massive media business. He never expected that the assistant who'd been helping him from abroad was the gorgeous, innocently provocative, completely infuriating creature he now has to see every day. Despite the rumors, he's never been one for a workplace hookup. But Chloe's so tempting he's willing to bend the rules or outright smash them if it means he can have her all over the office. And side note, they do.
Everywhere.
As their appetites for each other increase to a breaking point, Bennett and Chloe must decide exactly what they're willing to lose in order to win. And that's it.
And it really dives into the sex straight away.
Yeah.
Like straight away.
Like
I've
chapter
heard that.
2 or
No,
something?
it's chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Straight away.
Wait,
It's like
they
12
have
pages,
sex in
isn't it?
chapter 1?
Yeah,
They do?
Yeah.
they do.
Oh, wow.
Like it just gets straight to it.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it's
pretty.
like that for the whole book. Like it's very consistently sexy.
Yes.
Mm.
I
yeah,
do.
like by page 14, so it starts on page 1, by page 14. Sorry, this is not safe for work. Everyone listening, we're going to use the words. She's already giving his hot cock a hard squeeze, like by 14 pages in, straight away.
Wow.
This is the boss she hates, by the way. They hate each other.
They do
Yeah.
Hot cock, a
despise each
hard
other.
squeeze. It's quite the
Mm.
sentence.
I will say, though,
read that audiobook.
having heard Christina and Lauren speak about it, and I think I heard them speak about this on a panel at RWA last year as opposed to in our interview with them, but they spoke about how they structured the book. They actually showed like a really rough drafting of when they were working on the edits, and it was edited by chapter where they were having sex.
Yeah.
Like the location of where the sex was is how they structured the book, and you can see that in the book.
Mm.
It was
Yeah.
really interesting because that very first sex scene that happens in chapter 1, she's like pressed up against the skyscraper. Like they're in a boardroom,
The
all
glass.
glass, and like tits out, pressed right up against the glass for everyone to see. Like they get
That's
straight
just
to it.
not-
Mm.
Also, I felt like in this book,
I
like
feel like we need to describe Millie's expression for those listening.
If you're
Just a
listening,
combination
now.
of like anybody could be. I know that that's part of the thrill. I totally
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that anybody could see, but the thought of being pressed up against the skyscraper glass is horrifying to me.
I
Like you're
said
just gonna be
this.
the whole time. I'd be like,
Yeah. I said, who wants who wants to see the world before them while they're doing something like
that
that?
high up.
20
You wouldn't
want to
feet,
say, I-
four
like,
stories
vertigo.
up.
You wouldn't want
Vertigo.
vertigo or anything.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people do. Like I don't. I feel like that's not out of the realms of possibility.
I think
for
people do
someone's-
that.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
people are
Totally.
actually doing that all the time.
Totally.
I loved
watched
how
Six
afterwards
Session.
she realized there was probably like a smudge on the window
know,
and was
yeah.
panicking about getting it cleaned.
Real, right? That's a nice realist detail.
Yeah, yeah.
The poor office cleaners coming in with the squeegee like here and then a little bit further down, like,
Not again.
Very interesting.
I feel
Two
like it would
huge
be-
sweat marks on the window.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about those guys who like abseil and clean the
Yeah.
windows. Oh my god, on the outside.
Can you imagine what
Or-
they must see?
Or
Those
even
guys?
better than being like, this smudge won't come off.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh, this fake tan just spread on the window.
Ugh.
This is why you should get that job, because you might witness
I
such
feel like maybe
amazing
that's not a
things.
reason to get
I'm fine not being dangled off the side of a skyscraper.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
just
Talk
to
about a
potentially
fly
see
on the
something
wall.
weird.
So I mean, I think this book is interesting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is my memory that actually this is fan fiction, right? So
Yeah.
it started out originally. Can't remember which platform it was on.
It was Twilight fan fiction.
That
I don't
makes so much sense.
I don't remember if
Yeah.
they said what platform it was, but in the interview, I mean, I've heard, I kind of mixed the interview that you and Harry did, Amy, with the talks that we heard them do during RWA and at Flinders last year. But they did really, really heavy edits. And as someone who's like read a couple of really not well done fan fiction to original fiction like transitions, I think this was done really well. Like,
It was. You wouldn't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they really made it its own story.
Yeah, Christina wrote it as fan fiction and then I think just gave it to Lo, and Lo
Yeah.
just like made it did a bunch of stuff to it and then sent it back. And then I think that's when they started to go like, all right, now let's put both minds onto the same document because she wrote the whole thing. And now we'll see how we can kind of like make this have a structure for trad publishing, I think. was the idea behind it. But it was
It's sort
called
of
like The Office or something, I
yeah,
think.
it was
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
which
I
is so
loved
fitting.
I was trying to find references and I couldn't really find any that many direct things, but one thing that stuck out to me that I wondered whether or not it was a reference of Twilight was um Ben saying, say it, say it, say it, and I'll give you what you want.
It's
Oh,
pretty
that
impressive that they've done that because it's so hard. You know, everyone's always like, take your fan fiction and sell it and rewrite it and sell it, but it's so
Mm.
hard to decouple fan fiction from its fandom. So the fact that they've
Mm.
done that and that you guys are able to be like, oh, I don't really find any references is super
yeah.
impressive.
I think part of it is potentially the like fairly unique way that they co-write in that like I think if you
Agreed.
want to take a fan fiction to be an original published piece of work, you have to be willing to do really quite major revisions and quite major edits on it.
Yeah.
And that like you Amy and Harry both talked about it in the interview that like that's so much trust to put in someone to just let them like really just
Yeah.
take it apart at the seams and make something totally new out of it.
And I do wonder if that is partly because it was so long. Like it was such a long piece of writing that if you're the author of that, it would be almost impossible to know where to start when you have that many words.
Mm.
So it would be almost a blessing to hand it over to someone, I think. I
Mm.
think I would, I'm not usually someone who can hand over my work. Like I have very controlling tendencies, obviously. But
Obviously.
obviously.
Yeah. Brought us all together.
But I think that in that case, when you've just got an excess of material, it would be so much easier to hand it to someone. And it's interesting talking to them because they've got different strengths, I think, as writers, and they're very aware of them. Like, this is what
Yeah.
I bring to the table. This is what I bring to the table.
It's such a
Yeah.
complementary relationship, though, for two writers to have, right? Because I don't think, like, obviously we all love each other here. We wouldn't be doing a podcast together if we loved each other.
I can't
But
wait to hear what you're going to say next.
yeah, this is going to be good. And I'm going to leave it at that for next.
And now Harry lists all of our flaws as writers.
Oh, that's right, yeah. But you, and you. No. But I think it would be hard to pair up all of our styles, right? Because all of us write so individually. So it would be hard to pair up two people that can complement each other so well.
Yeah, and when you collaborate, I think you have to leave your ego at the door, right? Are you
Yeah.
creating a third voice?
Mm.
And I mean, I think that's so, their work, I always find you pick it up and the voice is so strong.
Great.
Like right from the first page, it just kind of, there's so much energy to their prose.
Yeah.
And
I would
which
be so-
sometimes, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you go, Justin.
I was about to say I would be so scared, and you know this, Amy, to share drafts with another writer. That would like freak me out.
We sometimes co-write. We were doing it today. We were co-writing an article together. And it's amazing to see the perfectionists really struggle to actually do it in front of people. We even had all our anonymous stuff on the Google Doc. And it's really funny how some people are just, it's a real freeze. Like it was interesting to see some of you write in another document and then transfer it.
That's what I was doing.
If you want to out.
Right to the bottom of the document.
I was
where
a
no one
perfectionist writing a different document that I then pasted perfectly.
Yeah,
Then
but
go,
I
I'm
feel
sure
like
about this.
I actually feel like co-writing, because we once wrote a whole abstract together, Justina, and you were great. Like I didn't feel like you were perfectionistic in that circumstance.
I have almost no memory of this, so
You're a multifaceted human.
I know
So
it
we'll know-
happened.
She
I know
blacked
it
out that
happened.
day. That wasn't her.
I was
She
very
blacked
relaxed
out.
that day. One thing I was going to say is, for me, like, because it's a fantasy, right? It's a sexual fantasy. That's the whole point of smut, is that it's not that anyone reading it wants it necessarily to happen to them in real life. It's just that it's a great little fantasy. But they're so realist with it that there were moments that I tripped up with the guy because he's horrible to her.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so the fantasy is obviously being attracted to the dickhead. Like
Yeah.
that is the fantasy.
Exhibitionism. Yeah.
Yeah. But do anyone have thoughts?
Yeah, I struggled with the same thing in that I had to realize quite early on in reading this that this piece of fiction was not written for me as a consumer. Like, I am not the readership for this work, which I think made reading the rest of it a little bit easier for me because I could be like, well, this isn't for me, but there is an audience for this. There's a particular line that, because you get his perspective, which is where I find him, I find him a little bit difficult. But there's a particular line that really kind of didn't sit right with me. And I do wonder if it's because I have the very first print copy. I know that they went through and a lot of the changes they made per our interview was with like consent and that sort of thing, because of how it's changing socially. But this line, he says, I felt possessive of her, not in a romantic sort of way, but in a hit her over the head, drag her off by the hair, and fuck her way. And to me, that came across, and I'm not implying that the book is this way, but it came across really rapey.
Hmm.
And so I couldn't,
Yeah.
I struggled with him after that.
That
But
is, yeah, that's a good point though, Abby, because they address it as well in in the talk that Amy and I were having with them, where they said that like going back through it after 10 years on the anniversary, they were like, man, there's some things in here that we just don't, like that just weren't part of what it was at the time when it was released and when it was transferred across from its original form. And I was like, oh, it's so interesting because, like, you're right. Bennett is so brutal in this book.
Yeah.
I
I
feel
wonder
like
if I didn't mind these things because I read it after hearing from them about the changes that they were making. And so maybe when I got stuck on anything, I just sort of like put it into a different box and hid it away somewhere.
I listened to the audiobook. I'm not sure if it was the new version or the old version, but that line was in it, so maybe it was the older version. And this isn't to take away from the like, you know, coercive vibes of sentences
Yeah.
like that, but there is, I feel like a like because this is his internal narration. It is a dual POV, and he is like straight up lying to himself for like the first half of the book, where he's acting like he doesn't have feelings for her, and he's telling himself that he's obsessed with her in a way that is purely sexual and has no actual feelings attached to it. But it becomes evident that that's not true. So like there is an element of like this isn't his. Yeah, it's still not a great attitude to have, even to lie to yourself as having, but
I
yeah.
can't remember what we've talked about on the pod and what we just talk about when we talk. So if
Yeah,
if we've
same.
covered this, let me know. But I think I've heard you guys have really interesting conversations around this idea of consent and fantasies as well. And particularly Millie and Justina. I don't know which one of it was. I think it was Millie talking about the act of opening the book as an act of consent and closing it. Did we talk about that on the pod at all? Is that just a chat
I
we've had?
think we did. I think that is on the. I feel like that was Abby though.
no, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely on the pod in brief, but we have had conversations about it more
Yeah.
formally
Yeah.
of the pod.
Because I think
I
that's quite
remember
interesting.
mentioning that during some of our meetings last year about dark romance.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
thought it was probably all of you at some point have said a version of this because actually it is a consensual relationship to read smut. Do you know, like we've kind of slid around this, pun intended, this topic all month about, you get into dubious stuff, right? Like dubious consent and all of that stuff. But the fantasy is often of that kind of caveman sex, right? Like we see a lot of alpha heroes, particularly in smutty books. They tend to be the less gentle kind of heroes. And particularly as we move into romantasy, dark romance, all that stuff. So I was wondering if you wanted to talk about that, because I know I've heard most of you say something around the idea of the fantasy being consensual because we pick up the book and we can put down the book.
Yeah. It's sort of like some of these books, and it's become more and more common now. It's almost like a meta narrative. So you're consenting to open the book and you're seeing consent on the page because the fantasy for you is instances of sex where consent is explicit and enthusiastic, etc. And then for some people, it's less meta and it's just you're consenting to open the book and you're immediately in the fantasy. It's not a fantasy within a fantasy. Like the fantasy is, like you said, that kind of dubious gray area, maybe slightly taboo,
Bit dangerous.
rough. Yeah. Because ultimately you are still safe and you wouldn't want that to happen in real life, but you're wanting it just in the book, in the context of the fantasy.
But then again, do we think this book gives that? do we think that from the blurb and the cover that we're expecting the kind of language like what Abby just described? Because that has
Honestly,
to be part of opening like there's different levels of smut book,
I
right? So you have to
I
be
think
Yeah.
part of it as well is like
Mhm.
it is a office CEO intern
Yeah.
romance, so you're
Yeah.
going to expect power dynamic.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it is part of the premise that he is a dickhead. So
Yeah,
you
fair.
are
I agree.
expecting some poor behavior from him.
And even
Yeah.
the tagline is an ambitious intern, a perfectionist executive, and a whole lot of name calling.
Yeah.
So it's already pretty aggressive. It is interesting. I wonder if they'd written it from scratch now, whether it would have ended with him still being her boss. Like, because intern is a whole nother level of a powerlessness.
Yes.
This is not even just boss and like intern is like very precarious.
It doesn't end with him being still her boss, does it though? Like or maybe
Or
technically.
because she works under his dad again.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So it's
That's not weird at all. Yeah, it's fine.
We've all been there.
Still
Yeah, so she's
the
working.
same family.
She's more
Yeah.
secure, like she's
Yeah.
officially, right?
Yeah.
And she's not being like directly supervised by him. So I think they're not working together in that way, but they are still at the same company and she is. So there is still a power dynamic there in that the father of her boyfriend, I suppose by the end of it, is her boss. Like there's still complications there in that power dynamic.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that is important when you're reading it for that like fantasy of it is that she, even though she worries about her career, she's worried more about the image of like, oh, if people found out that she was sleeping with her boss, would they make assumptions about her? She's never worried about him hurting her,
Yeah.
which is really important, I think. She's never scared of him.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she can always leave, right? Like there's always, when she leaves, she gets to leave. He doesn't like chase her down and pull her back like a caveman. And
or uses power to keep her where she is.
And there's a lot of focus on her pleasure.
Yeah.
In the scenes.
That's different to the others as well, which I find interesting because they obviously start a series that moves from here. And a lot of the books that follow this one have a focus on female pleasure, but it's probably the most, it's at the forefront the most in the first book.
Because he often, there are scenes where he doesn't actually
penetrate
get satisfied, right?
Or finish,
Yeah, which is unusual.
Yeah.
And it's also part of their like game that they play with each other. Like it's part of their whole dynamic is this like give and take between the two of them.
Yeah. There's also these interesting dialogue choices. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to remember them now, but he seems like he completely loses control during the act. Like it feels like she has all the power because he'll literally say like, "Oh my God, I can't stop." Like he just can't control himself, which in a way it sounds really aggressive, but somehow reading it, it felt more like he
was powerless.
No self-control in those kinds of
I think that's
situations.
Playing into a fantasy of like he's a powerful man, but he is like obsessed with her. He's like weak for her kind of thing.
Yeah.
One of the people commenting on YouTube, Rowan, just said one of my favorite parts is when she gets him to go down on her, and then when she's finished, she leaves him on his knees, tells him he isn't forgiven, and walks out of the room. Such a power.
I was also thinking about that scene because I'm pretty sure that's in his point of view, and one of the things that I find really good about it is that he's not like. He is just as into this as she is. Like he is really, really into it.
Because he talks about how good she tastes and how he could just consume her and all that. That was that scene, right?
Yeah. So I like that. Yes, they have this like dynamic and where she's like, yeah, that whole like, well, you know, you need to earn my forgiveness type thing, but it is still playful. It's not in a way that sex is ever being used as an actual punishment.
Yeah. This makes me really want to watch that movie, The Intern. Is that with Maggie Gyllenhaal? There are so many people are talking about it lately, and I haven't seen it.
I was thinking of a different film.
I was thinking of the fucking one with what's his name?
Robert De Niro. You were thinking of the Robert De Niro one.
Robert De Niro.
I saw that happen.
That one.
What?
I was
Wait,
debating.
Wait, is it The Intern? Billy, help me. Or is it like
I
the
can't remember.
secretary?
Hold on, I'll Google it. Keep
It's
talking.
Robert
I'll
De Niro
Google
and
it.
Anne
You mean the
Hathaway.
secretary with James Spader? You mean the secretary,
Oh, the
Maggie Gyllenhaal's James
secretary.
Spader? That is amazing.
That's
That
what
is
it
an
is.
incredible film.
No,
The bit
the
where he
one with
cares
Robert De
for.
Niro and Anne
Yeah,
Hathaway.
obviously.
And she
Obviously.
dominates
Man, that was the
them.
sexiest film I've
Obviously.
ever seen. You mean the one, like, because that's a really interesting film around not just the power in BDSM, but the vulnerability and the caretaking in it.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
always remember the scene where he cleans her after, like when she proves her love to him by not leaving that chair. And then there's that very tender kind of romantic bit where he's washing her body.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing film for looking at the complexity of this stuff.
I should watch it. I saw that one interview where
I
she
thought you mentioned it because you'd seen it, Paige.
I'm talking to you
Haven't
like
seen
you've
it.
seen it. You would
That
love
reminds
it.
me of this
It
movie.
just
You would
seems
love it,
relevant.
Peyton. It's so interesting.
It explains
we
why you
should
thought it
have
was Robert
Peyton
De Niro.
name films randomly, and we're
A
just all
double
trying to
bill.
guess which one.
We need a double bill of the secretary and the
The
intern.
intern.
Yeah. I'm like, that reminds me of The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Well, I feel like we should set Secretary as a film of the month because I would
Yes,
love to see
great
it.
idea.
Yeah.
I also haven't watched it, so
another-
On the
There's
topic
another week.
of like CEOs and billionaires, not to interrupt this very funny conversation, I would be curious to hear everyone's thoughts on, because this has been republished now in a modern sense, like what's the place for a billionaire romance now in our contemporary cultural moment where there is such a thing around CEOs and billionaires, where the fantasy of having that much money now is huge, but there is more. It's not just about the money with billionaires anymore. Like we have such a face to billionaires. Like, you know,
Yeah.
What's interesting is they're going off, like they're selling like you wouldn't believe right now. So that is fascinating.
I think it's the aspiration to not just wealth, but to like that level of thoughtless comfort. But also, like, this isn't a billionaire romance, I don't think, because like usually billionaire romances are accompanied with like a level of excessive luxury spending that is not that present. I mean, apart from him giving her like an open line of credit at the lingerie store because he's obsessed with her underwear.
La Perla, the expensive lingerie.
Yeah. But
Oh, Harry, what have you done?
I haven't done anything. I think it's just kicking in.
But yeah,
it's interesting you mentioned that though, because it's never once implied that she can't afford said underwear, just that he should pay for it because of
He's
how
breaking
quickly he's going through them.
yeah. In fact, he runs into her at the shop because she's there buying things for herself.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it is interesting because so then there's the CEO fantasy, which is maybe separate from the billionaire fantasy, right? So but they're both a little bit, like you said, I'm saying all the things at once. Slow down, Amy. So there's the luxury thing with the billionaire, and then there's power, which they both have, right? Billionaires and CEOs. And often you have both. Like if you think of 50 Shades of Grey, you have a CEO who's also a billionaire. But also he's quite interesting because his dad's still involved, which kind of infantilizes him a little bit.
That's true.
And his brother as well.
Yeah. And
I
his
found
mom,
it really
like,
subversive that his father and his family are actually really nice in this. Like that they are, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe they ever do anything that's negative.
no.
And watching a lot of K-dramas, my knowledge of CEOs and billionaires, like dramas and romances, comes from K-dramas. But in those, the family is such a kind of an issue for the couple because they are so negative and quite brutal. But in this, his family is so kind, which I quite liked.
Not once did his mother rock up in the middle of the night and offer her money to leave him.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that's where.
Sorry.
You go, Peyton.
I feel like it makes him like a safer hero because, you know, he can't be all that bad if he has this amazing, loving family.
And the other thing is, sorry. She also has a relationship with his family outside of him. Like she met them first, and they want him to invite her to dinner. So it's like they all already know and respect her before he even comes in the picture for her.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I
Is
was going to say,
there
I wonder if that's a generic marker of romance as opposed to just smut for smut's sake. Because if you look at romantasy as well, I think there's an element of, and this is where it's different from dark romance, right? Like romance versus dark romance. Dark romance gets very dark, very not as nice, right? And aspirational. Whereas being Christina Lauren, right, romance, which means there has to be some kind of idealized, romanticized world, which includes wanting to be part of his family.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes
And it
sense.
actually being plausible. Because then if you take their later work, which is less smutty, because you've got like rom-com type stuff with the Paradise
Yeah.
Problem, then you do get the nasty family. And you do get this like overtly rich lifestyle that becomes very hyper-capitalist. And that's probably because in this, you're right, Amy, it needs to be focused down on the smut and the relationship building.
And you want her to be
Doing-
with him, right? So you
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
see, because even in their later rom-coms, the families are flawed, but they're still redeemable. Because the idea is you don't want him to be so broken he's going to be a bad partner or they're going to
Yeah.
have a bad life.
Good
Yeah.
point. An isolated
Another-
life, yeah.
Another more general, this might be looping back a little bit, more general fantasy and romance novels that I've been thinking about that I know I've already said to all of you before, so I'm sorry for repeating myself. But I think a lot about anytime a kind of problematic or dickish hero appears in a romance novel, I feel like for at least some people, maybe part of the fantasy is that they can be kind of horrible but still be worthy of your love. And so I think that about like billionaires and assholes, heroes in dark
Dukes
romance,
in old
Dukes,
fantasies, yeah.
yeah, and characters like him, because obviously we all know and we've all kind of said already that if you met him in real life, you wouldn't really redeem any of this behavior. But I feel like part of the fantasy is that somehow, according to the fantasy world logic, it is okay to redeem him for the terrible ways that he behaves and treats her.
and is that
Because if
different to like the I can fix him idea? Like, do they stay terrible or do they have to be fixed to be redeemed?
I feel like sometimes it can be both. In this
Mm.
one, he's much softer at the end. Maybe it's more so in dark romance
Yeah, I
that
feel like in
they
the
yeah.
grand
they
scheme of alpha heroes, he's really not that bad. But this
yeah.
is like the bar for being
yeah,
that bad as
yeah.
an alpha hero is pretty
Uh,
Yeah.
it's pretty low, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does become a bit more softer, a bit more vulnerable. And I am thinking about sort of towards the ending of the book where she gets actually really upset, not so much because he's done something really dickish, but because he has, I don't know, perhaps quite affably been quite belittling. And whereas she
Yeah.
felt that him being a dick to her, she always felt like she was respected at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like they were like, you know, going back and forth, or that he knew that she would do her job and didn't need coddling or whatever. And then he has like a conversation with a different CEO where he's like calls her kid and says just a lot of very dismissive language. And that's what actually upsets her more so than him ever being directly a bastard.
right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think where the conversations get interesting around these genres because they're so popular, alpha holes, right? And dark romance now, like these kind of bastard heroes. And a lot of people are kind of conflicted because in their real life, they would not date this person because it conflicts with their values or their politics or whatever. Do you guys read these heroes for fun? Like, can we tease apart what's the difference between, and
I
obviously
have read
this is
a
more
bunch
for
of
the
them.
straight ladies, maybe. But do you struggle with like, is there a point in the book where you go, no, or can you go with the fantasy?
I feel like for most of them, I can go with the fantasy. Um, it also depends how critically I'm thinking about it as I'm reading it. So there are some there are some
Some of
where
them.
I remember last year, should I name the book that I'm talking about?
Go
Or
on.
should I
Do it.
We can
do
bleep it
it?
out if you for the pod.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not
Oh, yeah,
live,
true.
obviously,
We
but
should bleep
for
it out
the
anyway because it'll seem
we
much more
just
salacious
yeah.
if we do.
True, true.
I read Haunting Adeline. A lot of us were reading.
Oh, we should bleep that
Yeah.
out. No, it was that
Yeah.
book.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, bleeped that.
yeah. I want to start by saying that anything that I say about this book, I'm not judging anyone who reads it, kind of thing. Like, you should see the kinds of things that I have read. No judgment. But because we were reading it and we were reading it together and analyzing it quite intentionally, there were times where I kept trying to figure out what the broader justification of the characters' behaviors were. And with all of the terrible things that he does, the hero of that book, I still felt like, okay, well, he's being set apart from other actually dangerous, terrible men because he's trying to resolve a lot of sex trafficking issues in the country and all of this stuff. So he kind of, in that way, comes across as almost a hero. And where it kind of lost me was they're going through this fun house and they encounter a woman there who looks like a little girl. She has her whole story. Anyone who's read the book will know this. She lures men into there to kill them because she lures predators into this fun house so that she can kill them and get rid of the bodies quite easily. So, but the way that he talks about her pissed me off so much because he seemed so misogynistic. And I realized that the heroine seemed to me as I was reading it, suddenly he didn't actually respect women. It was just that she was the exception of all women because the other women in the book that he talks about, I didn't like the way that he thought about them or belittled them. Especially when like a character like her in the Funhouse, I thought she's kind of badass. Like she's luring predators into this place,
that's right.
killing them.
Yeah.
Like that's so cool. But he's treating her like a nuisance, like a little annoying girl, yada yada yada. It really bothered me. So sometimes I can follow the fantasy, and then sometimes I can follow the logic of the text within the text. And then other times it does lose me. I can no longer see what the grand narrative is or how it's supposed to resolve anything.
So if we circle around to, sorry, Abby, you go
No,
first.
no, you're okay. You go.
No, because I was going to move it on. So
Oh,
you
can I
say
I'm
your
just
thing.
going to quickly say that I find reading these, I can't follow the fantasy, and that's purely because I am reading them analytically. I've never read these novels for fun, but it's because I'm aware that it is not my fantasy.
Yeah.
So there are other novels that do meet my fantasy, and I will read them, and I can overlook if there is a glaring issue in it, I can overlook it because that's my fantasy.
Yeah, and I think that's
Yeah.
that thing about don't yuck someone's yum, right? Is the idea that everyone has a slightly different fantasy. I was going to circle around to queer romance. Sorry, Christina.
Oh,
you go.
now it looks like I'm stopping us from talking about queer
Oh,
romance.
no.
Well,
Wow, problematic Justina, cancel her.
Gosh.
No, I
Live.
was just going to say that on the topic that we were just discussing, that Rowan said in the chat that it's the idea that you, brackets the FMC, are the one person he gets to see who he is under the dickishness. So it's like, I mean, I don't think it necessarily means he's misogynistic to everybody except for the female main character, but it is that idea of being like the exception, like being special in that way.
That is
Seeing
a
the
fantasy in
vulnerability under
itself.
the power, right? Like seeing under the patriarchy to the vulnerable humans beneath. So I was just going to ask, like, I know we talked earlier this month around the way power dynamics replicate in queer romance, like those kind of heterosexual tropes that replicate. So thinking about power and smut, because you've all probably read more queer smut than I have. And I know, Harry, you've spent a lot of time reading about sex and male representations of sex written by both straight women and own voice. But is there a similar kind of power dynamic that plays out where you get this kind of belittling and because, you know, yes, she has the power in sex in Beautiful Bastards, right? She's often the one that has the power to walk away or be satisfied, but ultimately in the real world, he has power over her career and her. Do you get those same kind of dynamics?
I mean, you're going to get the same dynamics with the same tropes, right? So if you're reading a book that's about a boss and an intern or an assistant or whatever, that implies the same you know, a woman CEO is still a CEO, a woman
Yeah.
billionaire is still a billionaire. I think so in those instances, yeah, it's pretty much, I feel it's pretty much the same.
What about the implicit violence? Like, I guess I'm curious about, because in straight romance that, with an alpha, there's this threat of violence of the man being more violent, and his language is sometimes quite violent.
I think that's definitely gone, at least speaking on the sapphic side, that's gone for what's the word? Not normal romances, but I was going to say basic, which is also not correct. Tamer romances, like
Yeah.
whereas when you move
Sweeter ones.
sweeter, but I just mean as opposed to something like dark romance.
Yeah.
Only because
Okay.
I've read a lot of those because of our particular interests. That obviously reintroduces the violence, but that's also an aspect that's so deeply tied to that genre that I don't know that you can say it's replicating the same. I have a lot to say about the sapphic dynamics in dark romance that you can listen to on one of the previous episodes of the podcast. I don't have to rehash them here, but I don't know that it's always because violence is so tied to dark romance.
Yeah.
I think I would have to do it's your first draft thoughts. I would have to do more investigation to start to untangle them.
You're
Because
right.
I think sorry.
It is kind of like part of the tropes and conventions of that subgenre that readers are expecting to get when they open a book that's being marketed to them as dark romance. So yeah.
But even not dark romance, I think even alpha heroes, like even if you're reading, I don't know, like Mills and Boon presents, hey, pussycat.
Oh, so cute.
Even if you're reading or not even, if you're reading something like that where an alpha hero is like a thing, I think alpha heroes come with a threat of violence
Yeah, I agree.
In cishet kind of romance.
I think in cishet romance, you definitely see it, and that, at least from my perspective, in gay male romance, you definitely see it. But you see it because of the reinscription of the binary onto the two men, regardless of whether or not it's two men. One is feminine assigned, and one is masculine assigned. And so I think you naturally see this kind of it is sexual violence, I'll say. It's toned down. It's not to the level that you expect for it in some contracts when you open certain books. So there's some books, there's some like fantasy, like dark fantasy romance, like gay romance, where you know from the cover, from the blurb, from the first page, that you're going to get some really intense shit in here. But then when you move into the contemporary space, I think you just see a very calm, like a calmer version, but he still picks him up. He still puts him down on the bed. He is still the one that dictates how things are done and when they're done. So they'll say, "Are you sure we're going to do it here?" And they say, "Yeah, we're going to do it here because, you might be in your writing gear, but you've never turned me on so much." And there's just kind of like this weird, which you see again in Beautiful Bastard as well. But I think in a book like this, like in a book like Christina Lauren's, you see them trying to balance the relationship both professionally and in the sexual scenes. But in a lot of gay romance, gay male romance, I'll specify, you don't see a balancing of it in the actual plot. And so when it's unbalanced in the sex scenes, it just comes across as either sexually violent or like overtly masculine.
I wonder
Whereas
if
I feel like the opposite is true for a lot of the sapphic books, especially again, normal, whatever the term is that I'm using, in that you see the complete opposite where there is and I don't know that I can ascribe it to like a lack of violence, but there is almost a lack of passion, I find, in the sapphic scene. We
That's
talk a lot
really
about like
interesting.
the cottage core type thing for
Yeah.
lesbians. And I find
Yeah.
that even when I'm picking up a book, and I had this problem with trying to recommend books this month, is that I actually went through a bunch of books trying to find one that I'd be like, yes, I want to recommend this. And I was like, well, they're certainly having sex.
Isn't it interesting that passion in like for multiple reasons is kind of linked to forcefulness?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say, where do we cross the line there? Like, where do we change the line from the sex not feeling passionate, not feeling like there's two people that are actually want to do this? And then where is this happy middle ground between, whoa, this is for too forceful, like you just said, Amy. Like now this is moving into a whole different scope.
So is it around loss of control that
Yeah, interesting.
passion is
Yeah.
I've lost all control. I can't quite rein it in.
And
I
does that center around consent, obviously? So does this person consent to all of this? And if they consent, does that mean the loss of control moves into the passionate boundary? Or are we moving
Oh, Harry, you're
it
glitching.
outside
Yeah.
of-
You're glitching, Harry.
When your face hurts still.
he's gone again. We lost him.
Now they're about.
Consent.
I think Peyton, Justina, and Millie were all wanting to say something there.
Yeah.
There were two things. One thing I was going to say is maybe because I said right at the start, this book felt really refreshing to me, and maybe this is part of why I feel like this is so inappropriate. Are characters just like not that horny anymore in smutty novels? Like, are they not wanting to do the
Everyone's
actual
hot and no
sex
one's horny.
stuff? Yeah,
I would
it's such a
like
weird thing to say because I know it's lovely to infuse it with so much romantic meaning, but part of why these books are so fun is because it is just pure horniness. They
Yeah.
don't love each other until the end, and they've
Yeah.
been doing it in every chapter.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's true that they don't love each other to the end, because I think what makes the passion so palpable in this book is how much they're like constantly yearning for each other. I think, and I found it really interesting because I also struggled to find Rex for this month because I don't read that many books that I think would classify as smart.
Same. I
Not
picked
good.
old school because that's what I have
Yeah.
read.
And then after reading this book, I was like, I don't know if the books I recommended count as smut, if this is what our standard is of like the amount of like on page sex, because
Yeah.
yeah, one of the books that I'm reading that I did put in the rec list because I don't think it has enough sex on the page to count as smut, but definitely has that like yearning and that passion behind it, is called Whenever You're Ready. And I've blanked on the author's name, but you know, whoever
on
edits this,
Instagram,
put a little subtitle.
It's hard
But
when these books are older
Mm.
too, because this would have originally just been classed as maybe erotica. Like smut is such a recent category in trad publishing that this probably doesn't fit
Well, they
it
used to have.
perfectly.
They used to hide them, right? Like, so the old Regency romances and the old historicals that had the step back cover, you know, had the nice pretty cover, and then you open it and there was the clinch with Fabio kind of thing. They, by the 90s, they had very long sex scenes. So Stephanie Lawrence, who's an author from Melbourne, she would have 25 pages of sex every time, and they would have sex a lot once they started having sex. So I feel like it's been there on the shelves of romance. It's just not had a lot of attention called to it. And there were books, but you're right, there would used to be an erotica section usually right above the romance, like Out of Reach of Children. And they would be, I think there was just very little plot and it was mostly sex, 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 sex. Whereas these books still have plot and they
They
still have
do.
character development.
I was going to
Yeah.
bring this up back when we first started talking about the book and all the locations that they have sex.
Oh, we need
But-
to cover that, by the way.
I mean, I think it makes sense that when they edited it, they structured it around those locations or like the sex scenes, because the sex really is the plot. Like the inciting
Yeah.
incident is them having sex at the office, and then like when their personal journey and like the plot of the story progresses, it's often so inextricably tied with sex scenes. And like when they go to that conference together and they're in the hotel together and their sex becomes a lot more tender and their relationship becomes a lot more like loving, and and they have this conversation of like, hey, are we actually going to do this for real? Like you see the changes in how they're having sex and in the actual sex itself. So it's
And what I
like,
like about
yeah.
that too, Justine, I think that's a really wise observation, because I think that is what romance has often done, is shown that sex is a site of connection, right? And it's a moment where you see each other and you develop your relationship. But what I like about that too is it takes sex back from horniness, right? It takes it back from being a visual medium where they're getting you off to saying sex does more than just that. Like romance sex is saying sex is not just a biological relieving of one's urges. There's a lot more happening there between two human beings, or sometimes more, like between human beings. There's these exchanges going on and these recognitions of humanity and these vulnerabilities and these getting closer, learning each other. There's all these things going on that can still be super horny, like Peyton said,
Yeah.
without
But you
reducing
don't get
people to
involved.
objects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I feel like this is going to be such an annoying segue, I'm sorry, because this is such a good conversation, but I remembered something I was going to say earlier that I totally forgot until now. When you're talking, Amy, about like inherent violence and power dynamics between men and women and straight romances, it got me thinking about whether maybe part of why people interpret different romances so differently from each other is because some texts ask you to pretend that that inherent violence doesn't exist,
Yeah.
and then you just take what's happening in the book at face value. And not everyone can or wants to do that. For
Yeah.
some people, that inherent violence is inherent and always will be, even within a text. And then for some people,
Yeah.
you can pretend for a little while that it isn't there, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Well, we haven't got too much time left. So I thought Peyton has planned a little Peyton fun game for us, which is linked to the idea of the fact that in this book they start having sex pressed up against the windows of the skyscraper and then they proceed to have sex everywhere they go. All right, going Peyton.
Okay, so to warm ourselves up, which of these locations is not the location of a sex scene in Beautiful Bastard? A car, B, a hotel bathroom, or C, a restaurant bathroom?
Oh, I feel like I'm going to get
How do
it
we
wrong.
lock in our answers?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I
Having
do
not
this?
read the book, is it a car? Is it the car?
The car is.
Restaurant bathroom?
Yeah.
It's one of the bathrooms. I just had I'm trying to picture in my head which bathroom was it.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah, it's
restaurant
restaurant
bathroom.
bathroom, I think, because they fuck in the hotel bathroom because it's really nice.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
is it a trick question, Peyton? Did they
It's
or is it? Yeah,
they
hang on a second.
don't
She's
in
like,
the
they fuck
hotel
everywhere.
bathroom. They do it in a restaurant
Ah.
bathroom, but they do it in the
Ah.
Oh,
hotel
it's a
a
nice
lot.
restaurant bathroom.
Maybe
You're
that's
right.
why I was like, I'm sure they did it in the hotel bathroom, but maybe
Yeah, me too.
As I say, I knew they definitely
Alternatively-
did in the car because that's one of the very early sex scenes.
Alternatively,
Oh.
maybe I didn't write down the answer to this question and I forgot since making the slideshow.
Oh
It's
But-
possible it was all of the above.
Can we even read this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love it. Love this.
Okay, so this is for us. Like if we're going to have sex in one of these locations.
Huh. Yeah.
God.
Right.
Elevator.
One's
Oh my
the good.
God,
One's
I'm really-
good.
Elevator,
Is one good
hotel
or is
bed.
10 good?
I have to-
One's good.
Let's put
Well,
hotel
I
bed
just
number
realized,
one,
wait a
and then the
minute,
rest.
guys. Stop, because I just realized there will be people listening to this when we put it up as a pod and we aren't reading out the slides.
Oh no.
So for those of you playing along at home, the last slide was saying where didn't they have sex, and it was a car, the hotel bathroom, or the restaurant bathroom. Now Peyton has put up a slide saying rank these sex locations from 1 to 10, and there's an elevator, a hotel bed, an office, a car, family home, bathroom with your family downstairs, stairwell, conference room, against a window, elevator, at or under the dinner table with your family at the dinner table.
I think it's important to point out that all of these locations are locations they have sex in the book.
Yeah.
And also the elevator is
I'm just
listed
rating them
twice.
now for like,
Maybe the question is, people, which one of these have you not done?
Yeah. We can
Okay, let's
not
rank
talk
them.
about us.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just rank them
Theoretically.
for this, for a couple in you say you're writing a romance book.
Okay.
yeah.
Which we've
That's
ranked
safe.
these. What is the sexiest of these? I'm going to
It's
say
out
the
the
family at the
window,
table is
obviously.
the last.
Agreed.
That's last
Anything
for me.
involving other people is dead last.
Yeah, particularly incestuously.
I would also put the elevator down the bottom because, like, I don't know.
Me
if they,
too.
So we've got elevator twice. Is that for a reason, Peyton? Is this one you really want us to pick?
No, that was
elevator.
accidental.
Or maybe it's they go to the elevator, go to the hotel bed, and then back.
And then
to
they
the
go
elevator.
back to the elevator.
Yeah.
Is it one of them is
cameras
mirrored?
in
Is it a
them.
mirrored elevator with a CCTV? Have they got like voyeuristic tendencies?
He puts
Surely-
something on the camera so that no one
Okay.
can see
that no one
them.
can see.
But then someone speaks into the phone, and so they have to stop.
Yeah.
And what kind of
I
stairwell?
know.
Is it one of those concrete, kind of dank, cold ones?
So
Yeah, it's
cold.
like an office stairwell.
Yeah, I imagine
skyscraper.
it like a fire,
like fire
if
exits.
you can't
Yeah,
use
this is
the
gonna be-
elevator, go
yeah,
down
this
these
is-
stairs kind
Yeah.
of thing.
We're not talking
very
like Rundle
echoey.
Street, Amy,
Yeah.
where it's like
Yeah.
there's a questionable puddle on the floor and you're kind of confused about the banging noise that's happening down the stairwell. You're like, "Ooh."
This is
Maybe
going to
if
be
you're really
so
into liminal spaces and scariness,
this is gonna be
echoing.
so specifically local, but there's that stairway on North Terrace, which is in, I think, one of the medical research buildings, that is literally just a
Oh,
stairway with
outdoors.
glass.
Yeah, outdoors almost.
Yeah.
Because they had
It's
to,
not outdoors. It's inside, but it's got
But
glass.
it was
the
open
way
because
up.
they had to do something with it because there was like an air shaft. Like it was like the wind was ridiculous in there. So they
So if
closed
anyone's
it over.
listening who's not from Adelaide,
Yeah.
it's going to mean nothing to you. But
Yeah, but
All
there
right.
is this big glass staircase.
I
on the
think that's
outside
going
you
to
can
be
see.
that specific staircase has to be number one because it's a 2-for-1. You've got
Yeah,
well
voyeurism.
and against a window.
Yeah, done.
Oh,
Yeah.
true.
And
yeah.
office. And your
It's
office.
the 2 for 2. And also, you wouldn't have any sweat marks if you're in a nice windy tunnel, would you?
Where do
No?
okay, extending this, where is the we asked Christina and Lauren where if you were writing a book is a place you could not make sexy? Where is one that would just like there's no way we can make this? Oh, well done.
Oh,
Sorry, I
Peyton.
stole your question.
Ah,
Peyton's just
Oh.
put for those listening at home, that Peyton has put up another slide that says what would be a hard wink wink place to locate a sex scene? Where would you never
Wink,
locate a
wink.
sex scene? Where would you locate a sex scene?
A hard place to locate a sex scene. I would say in a house in like the area where everybody leaves their bins.
Ooh.
Yeah, lots of
Yeah.
logistics to consider from smells to rubbish.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's pebbled, like,
Yeah.
have they got footwear on? All types of things,
I do think like anything that's associated with being like actually filthy in the literal sense, like where there's actual like dirt and grime and germs and rotting things, absolutely not.
Your
about,
grandma's
like-
house? I think your grandma's house would be pretty hard.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Mm.
What
I mean,
about
I know
like a
people-
barbecue? That's a bit weird. Like while cooking.
A barbecue, the object?
Yeah, like what if you're
Yeah, rather than a barbecue as in a family barbecue.
Yeah.
Yes, as in an object. No, not
Both are
fucking the
bad.
object. No, no.
That's a different
I mean,
genre.
while cooking a barbecue, I feel like that would be a hard thing to organize, like locate a sex scene. There's lots of
Oh,
safety.
especially if you're actually at the
at
barbecue.
the, at the
Because-
barbecue. Yeah,
because there's so much
Yeah.
oil splatter. You people
agree.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Really
appendages
bad.
would get burned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a sausage or
I've just had somebody in the YouTube say Coles supermarket or
Coles.
any
Oh my
supermarket,
Oh,
Yeah.
which is quite
the
funny.
lighting
butcher's?
alone.
A butcher's is pretty
A
unsexy.
butcher's is a bit rough. Yeah,
Butchers is a big one.
especially. If
I
the
also
fellow's
think the
involved.
Coles supermarket, I just think there's a lot of space for a Coles and Woolies, enemies to lovers.
Oh my God.
Like
And-
Romeo Juliet Forbidden Love.
And you
Great
can call it
idea.
the night fill.
Yes.
Oh,
That's so
Oh my gosh.
Remember,
This is
Christina.
this is a
Oh.
tangent, but it makes me think of that Lucy Dacus song Night Shift, where the chorus is
right.
you've got a 9 to 5, so I'll take the night shift and
Put
I'll
it on
never
the
see you
playlist.
again if I can help it. Like
like if you
that's
think
the
about
dark moment in the supermarket romance.
If we think about office
Dark
places, right?
supermarket romance is something I need to see now. I just
Well,
think that's a genre waiting to happen.
When we go to Flinders, do you ever walk into any of these rooms and be like, "Yeah, this could do"? Nobody thinks that. Right? Like,
Oh,
if I was having sex at Flinders, I would be like, "My life has taken a turn for
This
the
is
serious
sad.
worst."
yeah.
You're like a location scout. Everywhere
Except-
you go, you're like, would I?
I have to say, I'm not at these,
Right.
not at Flinders, but at another institution that I know of, they actually put glass windows in the doors to all the postgrad offices because people were
Oh.
watching porn. So the security guards could walk past, and so no one was watching porn on
Oh.
there.
Oh my
That's what
God.
I thought you were going to say that the students were having sex in the offices.
did
I'm
I.
sure they
So-
did. Come on,
Yeah.
like you've got a bunch of people in their youth.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're
stressed
running
out
out
as
of
hell.
time.
I was going to say, this is getting
Amy's like,
We're getting loose.
nicey
We're getting off
here.
a tangent.
Wrap it
Anyway,
I'm going to just
we have to do
say,
a giveaway in a minute too.
I think
Oh,
for
yeah.
Abby should totally locate a sex scene in a swag. Just bookmark that idea for
That is a
future novel.
reference for those who don't know to an earlier
Episode.
Love
All right, so we're going to give away a copy of Beautiful Bastard, and then Harry's got our other giveaway. Have you got it there?
Oh, I did this
We
last.
never have it ready, honestly.
It's around Andrew Halloran's Dancer from the Dance.
Yeah. So
I have the
Peyton,
winners.
You have the winners?
Yes.
You read them
Okay.
out for us.
So, sorry to everyone, I'm reading out your Instagram things. For Beautiful Bastard, the winner is Rebecca_bad.
Woohoo.
And Dancer from the Dance, the winner is Miss Cleo Taurus.
Woohoo.
Oh,
So if our
lovely.
winners, so Miss Cleo Taurus and Rebecca_bad,
Yep.
if you could DM us your details, we will post these out to you or get these to you.
I know Cleo Taurus, she's a drag queen.
Oh, right.
I
So
was
you
gonna
can
say, I
pass
was
that
like,
on.
that's gotta be a drag name. Now that
It's
I'm
very
saying
funny
it
if we put it
loud,
together.
great name.
Well, you can either
Queer
grab
smut.
it from Harry or you can DM us your postal and we'll post you out your copy of
Quite
your
a
book.
fitting name for Smut Month.
But congratulations. Next month, we're going to do that slightly differently. We will also have a copy of a book to give away, but we will do it to people who attend for the YouTube Live. But the month is not over yet because we're in one of those creepy months that has 5 weeks, which is why it feels like it's never going to end this month.
Yeah, agreed.
But luckily it's Smut Month. So if you want to join us next week, it won't be live, but it'll be out as usual on Spotify or wherever you get your pods. We're going to do a special episode called Amy and After Dark, where we're going to talk about dark romance and taboo romance and all the kinds of smut that are slightly questionable. So if you would like to join us next week, that will be a very interesting conversation. But thanks for talking smut with us. Thank you, Millie. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Peyton. Thank you, Harry. I feel like I've learned a lot about everyone tonight.
Yeah. Bonding.
Oh boy.
And
She's-
thank you to
And she's
everyone
finally
on.
got our names.
Yeah, it's taken a while. Thanks to everyone who came along on YouTube and posted comments. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye.